Hello, 8th grade. Today we are going to be talking about how to display different kinds of data in a box and whisker plot. So today we are going to be talking a lot of vocabulary, which can be a lot of fun. I have kind of the first few things that we need to make sure we know before we can touch on a box and whisker plot right here, and that's going to be the median, the minimum, the maximum, and the quartile. So a median, if you remember, is going to be the data that is halfway through our data set. So the median is the middle number. So what's significant about the median is that half of the numbers we have in a data set. So when I say data set, I'm talking about all the different numbers we get. Half the numbers are going to be below it, and half the numbers are going to be above it. The maximum is going to be our biggest number. And the minimum, our minimum is going to be our smallest number, and our maximum would be our biggest number. Minimum is the smallest number, and the maximum is the biggest number. And I'm hoping we've seen median, minimum, and maximum before. What a quartile is kind of like if we take a median, and then we take 1/2 of the data, so the median splits our data in half. Then we look at one of those halves of data and we find the median of that. So now instead of having a half, we have a quarter. So a quartile is going to be a data point that cuts our data set into fourths. So it's a data point that cuts our data set into fourths, just like the median is the data point that cuts our data set into halves. So now that we have that, I kind of want to show you guys what a box and whisker plot looks like. And I'm going to grab these 15 numbers right here, which would be 1, 1, 1, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9. And where these numbers came from is this is the total number of goals scored in a hockey game. So these are hockey goals. And what the box and whisker plot is going to show us is kind of a visual way of looking at this data, so we're not just staring at a bunch of numbers. So to draw a box and whisker plot, the first thing we need to do is going to be to find the median, and then we're going to need to find our quartiles. We'll come back to this list, so make sure you leave a little bit of room here, but I want to go ahead and do that right over on this side of the screen. We'll look at finding the median, finding the quartiles. So if we take our data up top, our median should be the halfway point through the data. So I have my 1 and 9. I cancel those out. 1, 9, 1, 8, 3, 8, 4 and the 7, 4 and the 7, 4 and the 6. So my median is going to be the 5 right here. So my median is 5. And now I have this data set there and this data set there to find my quartiles. If you notice, we're going to have a quartile from this set, and we're going to have a quartile from this set, so we have to refer them differently. And the lower quartile is going to be called the first quartile, because it is the separation between the first and second quarters there. And if I cancel these out, I get a 1 cancels out with 4, 1 cancels out with 4, 1 with 4, so the middle number here is going to be the 3. So for the first quartile, I'm just going to write Q1 because that's easier, and that is 3. We do that again over on this right side to find what's called the third quartile. So technically the median's the second one. So if we divide this into quarters, we have there, the 5 would be the second quartile, and we need to find the third quartile. So the 6 would cancel with the 9, 7 with the 9, 7 with the 8, and we have Q3 is going to be 8. So now that we've found our median and our quartiles, we also have to make sure we see our min and max. So find min and max, which kind of happens when we find our median because we have to order it anyways. So our minimum is going to be right there, and our maximum is going to be over here. So I'll write min 1, maximum 9. And after that, we're all good to go. So this is called a box and whisker plot. I know that sounds weird. It'll make sense in a second. Our first step here is going to be to draw a number line. And when we draw our number line, we're going to draw it from 0 up to 10, because that's about the range of our data. No one scored less than 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or more than 10 goals. So that's a good place to put our data set. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to put points at, so we're going to plot the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the max. And that is a whole lot of things to plot, but that's okay because we just found them. So our minimum is 1, which would be right here. Q1 is at 3, which would be right here. 3, 4, 5 is there. So our median is at 5, which would be right here. Q3 would be at 8, right there. And our maximum is at 9. So now what we're going to do is it is called a box and whisker plot. So we're going to draw a box from Q1 to Q2. And then we're going to draw whiskers to the min and the max. I'm running out of room a little bit here, but it should still work out. Let me draw my box and whisker plot in green. So it says draw a plot from Q1 to Q3. That should say Q3. And if we draw our box from Q1 to Q3, this is Q1, that is Q3. And I'm just going to draw a box right here and make sure we can still see our median there. And after that, we just have to draw whiskers out to the minimum and the maximum. And whiskers are straight lines going out to the minimum and out to the maximum. So if we look at this plot, we have a box in the middle and whiskers going outwards, which is a very nice way to look at the data. I can look at this, figure out that the middle of my data set's 5, and figure out that half of my data lies between 3 and 8. So inside the box would be half the data, and outside the box would be the other half. So this tells us a whole lot of data in a very visual way, which is very, very nice. Another thing that we may have to do would be to find an outlier. So we've previously defined an outlier as a number that doesn't fit. But now we're going to have a more mathy way of finding it. So to find an outlier, first we're going to find what's called the interquartile range. So the interquartile range. And what we're going to do with this interquartile range is use it to try to figure out how far away from normal a number is, because then we can tell if it fits or not. So what the interquartile range is going to be Q3 minus Q1, which sounds kind of strange. We're taking our third quartile and we are subtracting our first quartile. But what that ends up giving us is the length of this box here. So the interquartile range is going to be the length of that box. So I'm going to write that right here, length of box. And an outlier is going to be now any x value that is either, and I'm just going to write this as math because writing out the words would take a very long time. So if x is less than q1 minus 1.5 IQR, when I say IQR, that's the interquartile range. So IQR is the interquartile range. Those are the same. And so if X is less than 1.5 times the interquartile range below the first quartile, then it's an outlier, which is a really weird mathy way of looking at things, but that's okay. Or if X is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So if X is bigger than the third quartile marker plus 1.5 times the interquartile range, then we'll also call it an outlier. And there's some other ways to name things as outliers, but this is actually the simplest way, despite how crazy weird it looks, to say this is an outlier or this is not an outlier. So it's the one we're going to go with. And looking here, what I would like to do is first, I'm just going to put down another set of information, and we're going to make another box and whisker plot. So this set of data I'm going to draw in purple, and it's going to have 210, 213, 245, 298, 301, 312, 323, 333. It keeps going. 356, 358, 422, 511, 689, 722, and 755. Oh gosh, that was a lot. So what we need to do now is the first thing we want to do is going to be to find our median, our min, our max, our Q1, and our Q3. And let's go through this and look real quick. So the minimum and the maximum, these are already ordered from smallest here to greatest here, so that's really easy to find. Our minimum is 210, and our maximum is 755. I'm going to go through and mark these till we find the middle, so I'm just marking one on either end till we find the middle, because that's how we find the median. And our middle number is 333, so that is going to be our median. Our first quartile here is going to be halfway through this first group of numbers. So if I do the same thing here that I did to the full set, then I get 298 for quartile 1. And for quartile 3, I'll do the same thing, marking off all the numbers that are above our median until I find the middle one. That's going to be 511. So if I plot this real quick, I'm going to need a very large number line for this. It's going to go from, I'm going to make it go from 200 up to 800, because I don't have any numbers below 200 and I don't have any numbers above 800, so it works out pretty well. Let's make this 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, and I'll move 800 in a little bit just to make this a little nicer. So 800 will be right here, 800, and now I can draw my box and whisker plots. The first thing I need to do is to plot all 5 of these points. I have my median at 333, 200, 333 would be right about here. Minimum is 210, maximum is 755. My first quartile is at 298, which is just below 300. And my third quartile is going to be a little above 500, so 2, 3, 4, 500's right here. And right there would be my third quartile. And if I draw this box, marking my median, and then draw the whispers, I have a box and whisker plot all ready to go. So that is how we make box and whisker plots and how we find outliers. That's what we learned today. Please make sure you do the lesson practice. It will show you or give you a bit of practice looking for outliers, because I know we didn't do much of that here. I just showed you how to do it. So that'll give you some practice finding outliers. We'll also have some practice not only making box and whisker plots, but reading them as well and seeing what you can figure out from the box and whisker plot. So please get that done, and then I will see y'all in class.